Welcome everyone to another episode of Broken by Concept, episode 210. Nathan, Mott, Coach Curtis here today. Now, Nathan, people come to us expecting answers to problems, and majority of the time we can give those answers. And sometimes we have to put on our detective caps because the answers aren't overly straightforward.
And sometimes we don't have the complete picture.
That's right.
And people are very good at painting a certain picture as well. You know, humans are biased, right?
Yeah, and League is an incredibly complicated game. Now, today, what I want to explore, I'm going to explore a few nasty problems that I don't necessarily even have the answer to. But even before we dive into these specific problems, I want to pose a bit of a framework here. This is, I guess, an approach to understanding where the complexity of the League journey comes from, specifically in reference to just LP and accounts and how accounts can be in these particular positions. Because the problems that we're referring to today are things along the lines of, Curtis and Nathan, I was at Master Tier and now I'm Emerald. How is that possible? Or I've been improving for X amount of time. I'm getting better, but my rank is going nowhere. I was this rank at this time and now I'm this rank now. Blah, 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 blah. So these typically can be stagnations. They can be massive drops in LP. They could even be positive in the way that they climbed over climbed LP over a certain amount of time. It's very rare that there's a straightforward answer, in my experience, to these kind of sorts of cases.
Of course.
Now, the metaphor and I guess the framework that I want to, let's just dive in. Okay. So I want to paint the picture of levers. Multiple levers, okay? And so imagine you got like this dashboard in front of you. Imagine that you're like in like some sort of crane, in some sort of machinery, and you've got this bunch of levers in front of you, right? Now, every one of these levers represents an element of the solo queue journey. Now, we've got one lever, we'll start on the right-hand side. One lever represents your champion's effectiveness in a given meta. Now, you know, this is a bit of a weird machine whereby, you know, if you were to pull it all the way downwards to the very bottom, that would represent that your champion is maybe not very good in the meta whatsoever. If you push it to the extreme, right to the end, that means your champion is incredibly effective in the meta. But it could be somewhere in the middle. It could be halfway point. It could be sitting in the middle.
I guess it's sort of a lever that we don't really control. It sort of automatically goes up and down.
Or maybe it's one of those things that you're raising up and down, right? Where like maybe that lever lifts something up and down. So you might have it halfway. You know what I mean?
I see.
So
and then something else is happening on the other levers.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay. Exactly. So imagine this is an incredibly complicated piece of machinery.
This is
arms
awesome.
going everywhere.
Yeah.
So you're following so far? You get it?
Yeah, I get it.
So you got one lever here, right?
The bottom, pulling it down means that it's on bad.
Yep.
And pulling it up means it's going good.
Yep. To some degree. Yep. So that's one lever that influences our effectiveness in solo queue. You've got another lever, referencing our general ability to express our best self. You might be in an incredibly good mood. Life's going great. You're killing it. You're sleeping well. You're exercising. You're following a schedule. You're in a great mood. Life's going great. So you're actually able to fully express your best self and play to your absolute limit in solo queue. On the other hand, shit could be terrible in your life right now. You're not sleeping well at all. You've got a lot of other, stresses going on, and that's going to massively impact your solo queue. So you've got two levers already going on. We have another lever there, referencing learning objectives, whereby you might be intentionally focusing on a learning objective whereby your mental stack is overloaded, right? So you might come into a game thinking, you know what, I really want to focus on this in-game learning objective. I'm trying to get better at reading the map state. But as a result, because you're really focusing on LoL states and maybe overemphasizing your mental stack, your skirmishing or maybe your decision-making in the game might get a little bit worse because your mental stack is overwhelmed. So again, on one side of the lever representing your mental stack is completely overwhelmed because you're actively trying to improve on a specific learning objective. On the other side of that lever, you've got, you're not focused on any learning objective. You've literally got a freed up mental stack, so you're just able to express where you're at currently at your level of play. So at the moment, we're about, what, three-ish levers in?
That lever, wouldn't that just be the mental stack lever? Learning objectives and stuff could be involved.
We can have them, yeah.
So it's like,
we can simplify
how when you play a game, how much of your mental stack is going to be focused on not the game?
Yeah, that's why I said learning objectives, because I think
Okay.
learning objectives is the most common one whereby it influences our mental stack.
Yeah.
All right. So we're 3 levers in. Now, there's plenty more. Let's just do a bit of a stock take here. Okay. Now, every single person's journey is being influenced by how are these levers positioned. Now, one person, you get one client, they might be, when they were on a sky high in terms of their LP, their peak rank. Maybe their meta, that lever was pushed to the extreme. Their champion was very good in a meta. Maybe life was going great for them. They were completely, mentally free,
They
happy.
could play the game with clarity.
Exactly right. So you've got maybe 2 levers that are pushed to the extreme. The third lever, maybe as well, they weren't overcomplicating their learning objectives and they're very free flow, present in the journey, and not really, that maybe they didn't have any in-game learning objectives. So that's the first 3 levers. They could be massively
out.
They could be maxed out, and
yeah.
theoretically, that person could be those could be massively contributing to their peak rank. Okay, so just to paint the picture there. So continuing on. You've got other levers, such as, are you learning a new champion? How familiar are you with that particular champion? Again, have you played this champion for a very long time and have a lot of champion mastery, or do you not? You've also got levers in terms of, you could even say secondary role. Are you familiar with your secondary role? There's all these other factors at play. Now, where it gets even more complicated is that the person operating, let's again going back to the metaphor, the person operating that machinery, those levers influence that person in a different way. Or even, let's say, the machinery, right? This is where I guess the metaphor gets a bit messy, but let's just bring it back to Solo to simplify it. One person may get extremely affected personally by having all this, let's say, not sleeping well, not eating well, not exercising. So let's give it a rating. Let's say, Jim Bob. We love Jim Bob here in the BBC universe. Let's say he has 5 hours sleep. Let's say that cuts his performance in half. Let's say,
Jimmy.
We've
got Jim Bob and Jimmy now. We need to be more creative here.
Yeah,
guys.
I know.
Alex.
Okay, Alex. Let's say he gets the same hours of sleep, was that 4 or 5 hours, but his performance only gets cut by maybe 20%. So he's still playing at 80% capacity. My point being is that even though 2 people can actually be in the exact same scenario,
The lever's in the same area.
in the same position, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to impact people the same way. Now, this is a very important thing to understand, because you've got 2 people now look at each other, think, well, we're in a very similar situation. We've been playing the game for the same amount of time. We're both in a very similar scenario. Why is it that I'm fluctuating more in rank than you? That's just differences in the person. We're not all equal here. We're not all the same. Now, my point here, and the reason I want to preface this, is as we go through these case studies, we go through these problems, I want to kind of have that in the back of your mind. What levers are at play here? To what degree? And and when you guys are breaking down the complexity of your journey, I really want you to keep that in mind. Is there a lever at play that you maybe, for starters, you might not even be aware of the levers at play. Most people aren't aware of the levers at play. But what levers may be potentially at play in your journey, and how may that be influencing your journey? So let's get into the first little example here. Now, we're going to be talking about one of my long-term MLA members, Prab. Now, he's from OS, and he's had some pretty remarkable results. I think he joined my program as a gold Diana player or something like that. And he's the one who peaked at 190 LP in Master last season, last split. So look at that. This is not even that long ago. This is split 1 season. This is this season. Split 1 this season. 193 LP. And now he's currently sitting in Emerald 2, 36 LP.
Very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
Now,
this is exciting.
If we take a look at his monthly tier graph, he was actually kind of plateauing for quite a while at that high diamond, and now he's kind of on the downward swing at the moment, getting back down to Emerald. And now his question to me was something along the lines of, Curtis, well, how is this possible? How was I at 100? I was at nearly 200. He was actually, I think he actually peaked at 250 or something, LP Master. How is it possible that I'm now struggling in emerald games and low diamond games? How is that even?
It's a bit of a
remotely
head
possible?
spin, isn't it?
Now, this is what I want to pose to you, Nathan. You've
Yeah.
obviously had a lot of experience working with a lot of clients. What are some potentially levers at play here? Things that you feel as though, when you look at this, what comes to mind? How would you reconcile this sort of question? What are some of the things that you would delve into here?
Well, I'm seeing here, so there's the information that I have presented to me. Obviously, I don't know. Is it his name Prab?
Mm-hmm.
So he's an Aurelian Soul one trick
Yep.
with 292 games, currently with a 48% win rate. So he's a flat out one trick.
Yep.
So this type of person, maybe what we're seeing here is maybe there's like a burnout lever, maybe.
Yes.
He's burnt out of his champion a bit. His view of the game, because the downside of when you one trick a champion, because you're sometimes trying to figure out how do I win every game with sometimes this champion. You're trying to problem solve. You see this a lot of the time where with one tricks and stuff where they try and come up with a build for every single situation, and then you're getting so far away from actually the champion identity that there's just no point anymore. And then now you're just in a just complete head spin. I've gone down that route a couple of times and just bring it back to the basics. Bring it back to the basics. What does my champ want to do? How do I win games? And be very happy to lose those hard games.
I just want to riff on that because I think you're absolutely spot on. Okay. One of my biggest contentions, what I've noticed with these massive LP swing accounts, they typically happen with people that are OTPs more than anyone.
I see.
I had literally someone at the exact same time messaging me. Cramble, who's a Cho'Gath mid OTP, went from Master Tier to like mid Emerald. Same, very similar ELO swing. He also happens to be an OTP. Both of these people are OTPs. You're absolutely spot on because with OTPs, going back to the lever, there is a burnout lever. And I think being an OTP, you tend to be a little bit more, get burnt out easier. But I think the other lever there at play is that the problems are very difficult to kind of compartmentalize. And so what I mean by that is that like you touched on it there, one of the problems may be build. Okay, maybe objectively, you look at a game, you're like, I did build wrong this game. And that was maybe a big reason why I could have won this fight. I had the wrong build, messed up, whatever. But then when you tend to latch onto that, then you go into the next game and then you're overemphasizing your build. When in reality, there's other really basic things that you're missing.
The next game has all these other problems.
But that's one example. Another example might be, okay, I feel like I'm not being aggressive enough in my early lane. So you start to be a little bit more aggressive in your early lane. But as a result, you're trying to be aggressive in early lanes, but you shouldn't have been aggressive, and you never would have been aggressive in the past because you're in this mindset of, for whatever reason, whatever mental algebra that you've been trying to complete. Now, for some reason, you're trying to be aggressive in a lane that you should never have been aggressive in the first place, just because you're in this weird headspace being an OTP. You're trying to solve too many problems, or you're creating problems out of nowhere.
You are creating problems out of nowhere. Exactly right. Problems are created out of nowhere. Yes, that's what's happening.
And this is where I like the lever analogy, and whether the lever analogy is interesting. Let's say there is a lever of let's say, these what's the word for it? I guess you have these problems that kind of you create these problems for yourself. The levers are somewhat interconnected, whereby the more you get in your own head about these problems, the more stage 4 problems come into play. Maybe, and the burnout comes into play.
Maybe it's like an overcomplication lever, which is it's hard to sort of measure.
Hard to move, or even that as well.
It's gone to the extreme of overcomplication, and then now suddenly the levers of stage 4 issues and your mindset and approach to the game, now that's going down. And then
they're
sort of connected.
And the burnout one is slowly, all of some of them are interconnected.
The burnout would be increasing.
The burnout's increasing, exactly right. And then also because you're now losing more games, you're getting more and more pissed off. So then your mood and then you start to maybe purposely overwhelm your mental stack with unnecessary information. So your mental stack lever goes up. There's
another one, Curtis, as well. Let's say you lose a lot of games. You got to get that LP back. You lose in sleep, and then you start. You're at school and work, and you start underperforming there, and then things get out of control. Maybe you're so focused on winning games that just the basics. It's I'm just gonna not clean up. Let's say, you cook or whatever, and you just leave it all overnight, you play, and then you go to sleep and your kitchen gets, it's just everything else can snowball out of control.
I literally had another OTP in my, he's about Master High Diamond. He sent me this message, and I was so proud of him. He said, Curtis, I'm pissed off. I had a bad block, but I've also had a bad week. But you know what? What you said stuck with me. I was so ready to stay up, play League all night, completely ruin my schedule and ruin my sleep and have another shitty day the next day. But I remembered I've done this before. I've ruined my schedule. I've pissed away a whole night of solo queue and felt way worse the next day. And that's ruined the rest of my week. But I caught myself and I said, no.
Love it. That's inspirational.
That's hugely inspirational.
Massive progress.
Massive
That's it.
progress.
You just, but you know, until you do it, you're not really going to learn the lesson. You know, like there's probably a lot of people listening to this podcast, but like, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds cool in theory. They get into that situation themselves. They stay up. They want to get the LP back. They completely ruin things even further. But you've got to have that experience. So just the experience has to be so painful that it's going to stick with you in those type of moments. Like, oh, I've done it before. How about I not do that again?
And speaking of the other person in a similar situation, in Prab here, where they went from Master to Emerald, he said, I actually asked him, I said, what do you generally, like, what do you think? Upon your reflection, what do you think? And he said, well, what happened is I was ashamed when I lost Elo. So when I lost Elo, I was ashamed. And then when I actually dropped to low diamond and started just lose games in like those high Emerald games, I was so focused on the LP that I was not present at all in my game. Yeah. So it's like, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, this kind of snowball-oriented nature, whereby it's like you're so pissed that you're losing that makes you so much more focused on the LP, and then you're not expressing your best self. You're not actually being curious in the reviews, and then you lose the plot. You can't even be objective about what's actually happening in the games.
There's so many other levers I'm thinking about. Yeah. The
blaming teammates.
The blaming teammates lever, the focus on LP lever, if that's to the maximum. The disrespecting the enemy. This is very common when people drop from massive drops. They think, well, I'm better than everyone here, so I can play differently. I can just take this fight that's a numbers disadvantage stuff.
Huge.
Massive, ginormous.
Like, ginormous. Yeah. Like, I didn't realize how big that lever was. Like, I've had multiple people over the past few months say that was the reason they were stuck in an elo.
Yeah.
Disrespecting.
People max out that lever real quick when they drop. That's instantly maxed out. That's probably one of the first levers that max out.
I think exactly right.
That maxes out max capacity when you start dropping.
No, because and where that comes from is because people don't know how little the difference is in between like the ranks in a way where they think if I'm in Diamond 2 and I go to an Emerald 1 game, I should be able to do whatever. I should be able to smash my face in the keyboard and still win. But in reality, it's all those small things that you were doing that gave you the edge that got you to that rank. You even said this in one of the previous episodes where if you drop the ball, you play on your Diamond Smurf.
Oh, yeah.
And you make one or two, like you get sloppy on a few things, you could easily lose a Diamond game.
Or the game's really hard.
Well, the game's just so hard.
So much harder than
it's just a few small things.
Yeah, it is.
And but that is not most people's perception. And then so they max out that lever, disrespecting everyone, thinking they could do whatever the hell they want. And then they lose more. And then that causes a trickle-down effect onto all the other levers. So when people ask us this question, this is why it's so hard for us to answer. We don't know. We don't know what it's like to be inside your head. But I think that's the purpose of this episode. What I think I want to try to do here is help people understand that there are these levers at play and they are all interconnected. And this is where what we mean by sometimes being honest with yourself and having that tough conversation with yourself. And try and maybe even thinking about what is at play here.
Yeah. That's the cool skill that, that League of Legends gives you, and the challenge of climbing the ladder, because it's so hard and we just think it's the best game and it's the most difficult game. Because having a tough conversation with yourself, not even about League, just where you are, your situation, maybe you hate your situation or whatever. This is a skill, it's difficult. You got to do it.
Yeah. And I will find this and look, this is something I am curious about. There is, in my eyes, if you got to Master Tier, right? Let's say you got to Master Tier playing a handful of champions, let's say 2 to 3 champions. Do you think it's possible to swing to Emerald? Is that like I genuinely can't.
You wouldn't. So you're just basically saying here, this is only possible with one.
Yeah,
tricks.
I personally, look, I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, I want you to hear in the comments. But I can't recall.
It's definitely happened. I have.
You seen it?
I have, but it wouldn't be as much as one tricks.
Mm.
Now that I've never thought about it that way, but you are right. Yes. I mean, obviously, I don't know where the strength of Aurelion Sol is. How's Aurelion Sol in terms of...
Well, I did tell him... Okay, so let's just bring it back to prep, right? So he's sitting here at a, 48% win rate, And out of interest, let's look at his stats, right? Let's go to the split where he was master tier, right? If we go to split one where he was master tier.
Yep.
52% win rate, right? With a similar amount of games, or a bit more, obviously, amount of games, right? So not that big of a difference, 48 to 52. It's only a slight difference in terms of...
No, that's a massive difference. What are you talking about?
It's not like he's going from smurfing. You know what I mean? It's not like he's going to like losing.
Remember,
he wasn't an exceptional. He's just winning the slowly majority of games.
That's right. Correct. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's like just massive talented player. Clearly,
yeah, exactly.
This is definitely a player that could, if he starts dropping the ball with a couple of things, yes, there will be massive drops. But yeah, like what has he got? He's got a 48% win rate. Yeah, a 4% win rate drop could be. Yeah, that could be 300, 400 LP.
Yeah. And so, okay, so I've said, these are the few things that I've said to him. I said, number one, when you did get to that rank in master tier, ASOL was objectively a little bit better in the meta. I think that was one of the levers at play. Okay. What I also said was, I think you were on a high of confidence. And I think that you were feeling great, and there was definitely some element of confidence there. Like he was really at a high, and I think he was playing with confidence. He was playing with just like not a lack of fear of failure. He was just really going out there and expressing his best self. I think he found that balance of looking for opportunities, but also staying like I think specifically with ASOL, you got to have this mentality where you got to be very opportunistic. If opportunities present themselves, you got to find them. And I think ASOL's one of those champions, right? Where okay, so let's bring it back to something that you may resonate more with. When you're playing Rek'Sai and you're playing your best Rek'Sai games, you're not forcing anything. You're looking for opportunities. And if those opportunities present themselves, you're going to go, right?
It has to be high percentage.
It has to be high percentage. And I think what happened with him is that he lost confidence for whatever reason, or maybe he focused on something and got distracted. I don't know. But he started to miss a lot of opportunities. And then to compensate for that, he went the other extreme. Now he's gone to all the opportunities. So he's struggling to find that middle ground of how do I be proactive and looking for these angles and looking for these engages and looking for these picks, but also not force them. He's
yeah, but the answer to that, it's impossible to have that mindset or answer that unless you get specific. You have to get specific every single moment. Yeah. It's really difficult.
And that's what I've been doing with him. I have been doing that with him. And I also think as well, there's a thing that's playing in his head where it's like, well, I've been getting coaching this whole time. I'm playing the same champion. I'm doing very similar builds. I'm still getting coaching. How is this possible? And I think that's the
doubt lever. The doubt
lever, and that's really messing with him.
Yeah.
That's really, really messing with him. And then a part of me just thinks as well, just like you haven't adjusted to the shift in meta. I really do. I really think that's a huge part of it. And I don't know how that's manifesting. I can't watch every single one of his games, but a part of me, there's something there as well with the meta. And how
are you talking about how Aurelion Sol is played, or are you talking about how the general game is? And
both. I would say both.
Okay.
Yeah, I would actually say both. And so again, and I'm not going to sit here and bullshit him. I don't have the answer. I can't tell you. I actually don't know. I'm going to say I straight up don't know. I'd be lying if I said I knew.
Yep, there's no clear-cut
answer.
It could be many things.
But again, what I think and what I keep telling him to do is we just got to keep getting into the details. We got to keep chipping away. Get specific, and just trust the process. And that may mean you may piss away a split and be stuck in Emerald for a split. I don't, and you may not know. And this is what I think is going to be, Nathan, for him. He may not know until later on in his journey. He'll reflect back 6 months from now and be like, oh yeah, that actually did make sense. And there'll be some giant thing that he's just, because he's in it. When you're in it, it's hard to know. Yeah. After, in hindsight, it's very easy to see.
Cool case study.
Now,
do we have any others?
Yeah, I got this other one here. Now, this one's a bit different to Praps. This one is of a player that is stuck. He's kind of plateaued. Okay, so
this is another Aurelion Sol player.
This is another Aurelion Sol player, but on the other side of the spectrum, he's in silver. Okay.
Maybe this is just an Aurelion Sol problem.
Well, this one never was high though.
Okay.
So he hasn't declined. Okay. He's just stuck, right? He's plateaued. And so basically he's been silver for quite a while. He's got a decent amount of, if we go back, I don't know, actually out of interest, when did he start playing ASOL? Did he even play it in split one? Let's see. Okay, so this was his first proper season from what it seems like of ASOL. So he's got a decent amount of games here on this account. He's got 2 accounts. He's got this one here with about 50 ranked games, I believe. He's got this one here on this split with another 60-something. So he's got about 100 and something ASOL games in this split.
Okay.
I think this is, so this is his new account. Now,
So it's an ASOL one trick.
he's an ASOL OTB again, right? Now, for him, his problem is this, Nathan. He said, Curtis, I've been watching your content. I've been playing games. I've been getting reps in. I've been getting coaching. Nothing's working. He's been sitting at a very, very similar rank now for about 110 games, he says. Okay? Now, I think this, and he's at the brink. He's really, like, mentally, like, he's had enough, right? He's getting to the point where he's blaming teammates, matchmaking. He's up shit creek.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired.
And so I've got a bit of a theory with this guy. I've got a bit of a hypothesis. I want to share with you my take. Time back to the levers. First things first, right? He's never climbed from what it seemed like. If you go back to his history, right? If we go back here, split 1, he didn't play any mid. This one here didn't play any mid. So this is his first proper split with ASOL mid. Okay. So what happened is that he was always this sort of rank. He was always just a mid to low, just a mid silver player. Now he has improved a lot, but relative to what? Right? Like you've improved, but you know, you're not really plateaued because you haven't had any other splits with the champion. You're just it's just taking time for concepts to sink in. Now, in his mind, the timeline is, but I've got 110 games. Surely, out of all the things that I've learned, surely, you know, some of them are going to lead to me getting past this rank. But in reality, I think the way I viewed it for him is, yes, he has improved, but the other levers are preventing him from climbing as fast as he would. So he's got one lever, maybe representing, like, let's say he's actually just getting better at the game. And he is. He's making better quality decisions. He's fighting better, whatever. That's going up and up and up. At the exact same time,
we've got an expectation lever now here, Curtis.
Yeah, there's maybe
maxed out.
He's got an expectation lever at play. That's actually maybe it maxed out.
It's maxed
and
out.
that's hurting.
Yeah.
And there's also a lever that's doing this, Nathan, is slowly going up, which is again relating to how pissed off he is, like a mood.
He's getting angry and angry.
He's getting angrier and angrier, which is preventing him from expressing his best self. And then it's getting him more focused on the LP, more focused on teammates. He's literally sends me messages about they have this amount of ranked players and we have this.
Oh no!
How can I? And if I'm constantly outperforming my opponent and I'm still losing, so he's getting into all this extraneous, you know, stuff that's ramping up and only getting worse day by day.
The focus on outside of control that's ramping up.
Exactly right. And so they're offsetting each other. So you're not going anywhere. And so it's not that you're not getting better. I mean, theoretically, yeah, I guess you're not, because maybe not anymore. Maybe you were, and maybe the levers are so jacked up, the other levers are so jacked up, maybe there is no progress anymore. But but from his perspective, all he's thinking is, I'm getting better and better, and I'm not seeing any return. But that's a very, very simplistic way of viewing it, and that's actually not the truth. You may have been getting better temporarily, but now that the other levers are so jacked up, maybe you're not improving anymore. And now you've got the expectation lever maxed out. And now you're at a point where you've got nowhere to move. You got no room. You can't actually improve anymore. It's impossible to actually improve because you're not curious about the game anymore.
Yeah. The way that I visualize it again is you've got all these levers, and it's like it equals. There's like a percentage, like a of 100%. Like it goes green and red, right? So because the levers are, you know, in a certain position, certain way, the improvement meter is currently at like 20%. It's like red. It's like danger. So there's no improvement going on. That's how I visualize it, you know? Yeah. Like, but as you adjust the levers, then it will go, like if they're going in a good way, then that's going up. And then green, it'll go to green. It's like 70% improvement. It's like, you know, we're chipping away. And then there could be like 100% improvement if like every lever's perfect, you know? It's just 100%.
Or maybe, you know, you have green as improvement, red is self-sabotage.
Yes, and that would be self-sabotage.
And so what's happening is,
it's not a 100% bar. It's You know, with fire, you know how it's like, it says like the risk of fire today, those
Oh,
things.
yeah.
And
It's like your scale thing.
Yeah, it's like high risk. It's like a scale and it moves.
Yes,
It's like
yes.
it's like a semicircle, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And then, you got the self-sabotage is all the way on the right.
Yes.
And as
yes.
you move the levers, it like that moves, that little, what do they call, like a little dial.
A little dial, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I love that. And so, yeah, he's got improvement is now really low, right? And then the other one, the self-sabotage one, is really, really high. So you can't go anywhere. But even if the improvement was getting up, it wouldn't matter because the other self-sabotage dial is so high as well.
Because like, let's say if you're on the self-sabotage, let's say you start doing start pulling levers that are good. It's slowly going up, but you're still in that red zone, right? You're still, and then maybe you're in the orange zone, you know? You're still in like fire.
Yeah,
like it's like high risk of fire than just like extreme risk, and then now he's just in the high risk. But he's got to keep moving those levers to start getting all the way there. That's what I mean.
And look, I think for him, and look, he's messaging me all the time. Well, not, you know, because obviously I'm here to help, right? And I think he's growing frustrated with my responses because what I keep saying is, look, you got to keep in there. You got to focus on what's under your control. There's always things you could be doing better in these games. We got to get into send me clips, send me reviews. And he does send me clips, but I can tell, you know, when people send you clips and you give them advice and you say what you could do better, they're like, really? I have to play it this way? I have to play. And so he's in that mindset of, I have to do everything perfectly because my teammates are so shit. And if I make one mistake, we're going to lose the game. That's his mentality. That's his mindset right now. And because you have that mindset in a game, you're going to feel pressured to play perfectly, and that's going to make you play worse. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And he sent me a clip. One of the specific clips was so interesting. It was a play, right, where he's so far ahead. His team's so far ahead. He's like 6-0 or something on ASOL. And there was this chaotic fight in the river, and some teammates get caught, whatever. And it ends up being like a 2 for 3. And like 3 of his teammates die, whatever. And the enemy were like circling around the Baron, but they couldn't have done the Baron because they're also low. But he panicked, went in, and just died. And I'm like, you didn't even have to clean up. You didn't have to be the Superman. You didn't even have to do any. You just had to not face check this bush and not just die to the Zinzao. But I can tell that he's getting really pissed off because he's like, that's how it manifests. That's how the mindset manifests. You're feeling pressured to do shit in game. And that's making you worse. And that's making you even more pissed off.
Yeah, it's a snowball out of control.
It's a snowball out of control.
That's the hard part about League is that you feel like things aren't getting done by your team in a certain moment, and then the next moment where you shouldn't have done anything, then you force it. So it's like, you know, and that's why you can't ever use the word general. It's like, I'm a passive player, or like, you can technically sort of say that for certain players, but it's about the specific situation. It's like, I'm too aggressive at this moment at 18 minutes in the game, or I didn't realize I used the abilities. You have to get specific. It just doesn't work. Everything falls apart with League the moment you're general.
So what advice, Nathan, would you give to him, given all this?
Okay, you know the big one? Here's a good analogy for you guys. I've just come up with this. I really want people to just get excited and like embrace your rank, right? And you might be saying, come on, Nathan, you're telling me to get excited about Silver. No one thinks Silver 1 is good, you know, but view it as like this is the analogy. Let's see how I go with this here, Curtis. So let's say you're in Australia, the working age is 14 years and 9 months. So, and you want your first job, right? And obviously the most entry level job you can probably get is like, you know, working at service or like, let's say McDonald's or something like that, right? And you're working at McDonald's. People don't really view that as like a really good job. That's where you got to start, right? You know, you got to start somewhere, you know, your first job. And you're with all your other peers, right? So think about as like, let's say you work in McDonald's, you're 14 years and 9 months, and you got other 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds and stuff like that. You're all in this together. You're all in this event together. Now, everyone's going to go in different paths in their lives, right? Some people might be more successful than others. Some people might go down this route. Some people, you know what I mean? But you're stuck in the same situation. Everyone's in this game, this Silver game. So how about we make the most of it? How about you do really good at your job, even though it's not viewed as like, you know, let's say you doing really well, you know, being a beast at your job at McDonald's, it doesn't get noticed, right? but just have that energy and that effort towards that. And that will actually help you in other areas of life. Then you'll start accelerating and then, maybe getting past your peers in that, again, that McDonald's environment on that working day versus, silver. So I'm getting out with the analogy.
Right. So let me see if I'm understanding you here. So what you're saying is
there's the McDonald's worker that can be, this 15-year-old and it's like excited, first job. I'm just going to try to do the best that I can. And then there's that 15-year-old who's like, this job's beneath me. I shouldn't be, I don't, doing this. They're just not.
They won't get anything. They won't get much out of it.
Yes, that's right.
What you're saying is that for a silver player, the more they can just embrace the fact of where they're at, they're going to get more out of their experience being in silver. And that may set them up with skills that will lead them or help them later on down the line. Whereas if they were to just be like, in the dumps about, here I am in silver, just another day in silver, and they're just constantly beating themselves up, they're actually not going to develop as many skills and
mindset as well.
It's just going to make it harder in the long run for them to succeed.
Yeah, it's going to be a miserable experience. Rocking up. Let's say you finish school and you're going to go to McDonald's. Here I go again.
Yeah.
And like sort of lift up your peers and, just really embrace your break. Because people just, again, the expectation, it's like, oh, I'm still like, suddenly the analogy can be, I just started working and now I expect to have my dream job the next year. It's like, come on, It's unrealistic, right?
And some of us are slower learner than others as well.
Yeah.
You might have some people that get it, they click with things really quickly, and other people don't. And that's okay as well. We're all on our own journey. And those levers affect us in different ways.
But we're in that position. Like we're all...
Regardless.
Regardless, we're all in this Silver One game together. Regardless, we're all at this McDonald's right now on the same pay. We're all here. So let's make the most of it. Let's get better.
And so, look, if you're watching this, Rafiki, who, I know that you might be uncomfortable us breaking down your account, and I understand that. And, I'm genuinely trying my best to help. And I apologize if it doesn't seem like I am, but I really am. And I'm hoping this episode has given you a new way to view your current situation. And hopefully we can get you out of that hole. So, and actually, I want to reframe that. There is no hole.
Yeah, there's no hole.
There is no hole. There's just you on dry land, just look into the sunset. And
it's just on a journey, dude.
You're on a journey.
It's awesome.
Exactly right.
This again, going back to my analogy, he's a 15-year-old working at McDonald's now. Who knows? In 5 years' time, who knows? Like he could be, CEO of a huge company or something, But it's just what you make of it, right? Just get excited. Don't be expecting to suddenly be platinum tomorrow. That's just not how it works.
Beautiful.
Should we get on next topic here, Curtis?
Yep.
So this one's a bit of a funny one here. Talking about skills. It's so funny that this ties into the analogy, right, of jobs, right? So someone here, this was a tweet here of someone, a League of Legends player shared their solo queue rank on LinkedIn as part of their resume. All right. So the screenshot will be on the YouTube video, but this is what the resume said. I thought this was really funny. And let's break down the skills. I'm thrilled to announce that I've recently been promoted to Grandmaster tier in League of Legends, placing me among the top 1,000 players in North America. This milestone represents years of dedication to, number one, perfecting my plays through constant practice and analysis, developing complex strategies to outmaneuver opponents, number three, leading my team effectively both in-game and during planning, number four, maintaining a never give up attitude, even in challenging matches. Number five, embracing a teamwork first mindset as a support role player. Beyond these, my journey to Grandmaster has taught me valuable skills that translate to professional settings, rapid decision making under pressure, adapting quickly to evolving situations, effective communication in high stakes environments, continuous learning and staying updated with meta changes, and then finally, mental resilience and emotional control. And this is sort of like in a resume type format, right? Reaching this level in League of Legends requires a combination of individual skills, strategic thinking, and the ability to seamlessly work within a team, qualities that are equally valuable in the professional world. I'm excited to bring these honed skills and experiences to my professional endeavors. If you're interested in discussing how competitive gaming can foster professional growth, feel free to connect. And as hashtags here, hashtag League of Legends, hashtag gaming, hashtag professional development, hashtag teamwork, hashtag leadership. So like people could see this as a joke. Who knows? Maybe this actually is a joke post, right? But it's pretty spot on. Like I like the points, the little dot points about the skills that he's thought about. What are the actual skills that this game's teaching me? And put it in like a, thinking, how can this apply to my professional scene? Like sports, like let's say if you're an athlete, you probably are probably favored more so in maybe certain job situations, right? Like if I was an employer and I saw someone who was like a, an top 1,000, that's insane, right? That shows a lot about you as a person, your character.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it would depend on how open-minded
how they view gaming,
right? But I just couldn't help but laugh at one of the comments there that was so funny. He said, every good HR department knows that it's just a small step from gaming addict to workaholic. Signed.
That's so good. Yeah, I think there was a lot of comments here saying, where was it? Hey Charles, nice ELO. What can this teach us about B2B SaaS sales? Name a time you had a challenging interaction with a toxic teammate and how you overcame it in the interview. That's great.
Yeah, imagine if the person who was hiring you played League of Legends and they started asking you about like how you handled toxic situations in game.
No, they come up with a case study.
Yeah, case study. It's That'd be hilarious.
This is what this person
your
did
jungler path top side and you have to break down the situation.
You've been weak-sided.
You've
been dove 3 times. What do you do? Number 1, flame your team. Number 2, silently give up, or like quiet quit or whatever. Number 3, keep trying to minimize and trying to do your best. That could be what the interview questions are like.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, like we like you said, we don't know if it's a parody or not. Ultimately, though, look, it's well written. I mean, it does kind of look like it's written by AI. It wouldn't surprise me if it's written by ChatGPT or something. But, yeah, I mean, it paints a pretty awesome picture of what you can get out of your League of Legends journey. And look, for people who understand how difficult League of Legends is, if you are getting to Grandmaster, that's an incredible achievement. And I think as time goes on, we can only be hopeful that companies... businesses start to realize how big of an achievement this really is and how hard that really is and the dedication and all of those traits it really takes to get to that level. So, in all seriousness, I do think it's actually kind of cool.
Jono said league players. He thinks that top league players, they'll be beasts in the real world in terms of professionals. Yeah, many different industries, right?
Well, I think the big one is just raw adaptability, right? You're never comfortable. It's like, well, this strategy is working now, but in 2 weeks' time, that strategy may not work anymore. So like your ability to like just be on the fly, adapt, never getting comfortable, always being willing to change, see things through a new light, let go of your previous views on things and move on to what's the next thing. Because think about it, in the real world, that's exactly how things work. It's new technology. New businesses are doing new things. You got to find new ways to adapt in the real world, and that's exactly how it works. Or learn new skills. And because League literally changes year to not only patch to patch, but season to season, you literally need to develop new skills, and to climb, you need to develop new skills. So it's great.
All right. So moving now on to our Skool post of the week. This one here came from Daniel. The title of this post is Am I the Problem? It seems as if I haven't played a decent League game in weeks. There is so much toxicity and people leaving or downgrading others. I used to do party chat only, but I had a few games that I could have dodged because of people arguing in draft that later entered or was toxic all game that caused us to lose. I know people have had bad games, however, I believe a lot of the games we could win. The issue is everyone would rather fight and type than play. Now, I watch silently try my best and attempting to improve while the team fights and pings around me. Am I doing something wrong here? Should I mediate my teammates or will that just make things worse? It is making one of my favorite games not fun at all. I just want to play. What do I do? So I thought this was an interesting post of like the question of like, you know, am I the problem? Like, what's going on? Like, why is everyone so, you know, toxicating, you know, each other? So, I mean, let's just think about big picture about the rank system, right? I guess it's like, am I in the problem of like what context? Am I the problem in terms of why my teammates are toxic? Let's start with like, am I the problem of like, I'm trying to think like, would Daniel be posting something like this if they were like doing really well in ranked and like climbing and winning a lot? Usually this post would come from someone that's like, you know, probably losing, it's just having a miserable experience, right? Like generally, like from what I've seen is that people will start realizing they actually set all this stuff aside when they're like, league's the best game, league's awesome when they're winning, right? So typically that's where I find these posts come from. Now, what we understand is the rank system is very, very good at putting you at where your skill level is. So am I the problem in terms of like me being where I am and I don't want to be where I am in the ranked ladder? Yeah, you are, right? We could be getting, there's lots of things we could be doing in our problems. There's lots of things we could be doing better in our games. Am I the problem in terms of why my teammates are so toxic? I would also say like, no, it's out of your control, but in a way, yes as well, because if you're making better decisions, you're like, you know, doing really well. Like let's say for example, I'm a jungler. I had an opportunity to counter gank. I do it. We get a triple kill. Awesome. The game's really easy. Versus I missed that counter gank. I let the enemy jungler gank it. And then now the game's sort of a different game. And then maybe there's an argument that now happens because of that, you know? So it's important to sort of think that you are the problem in a way. I think that's a healthy way of thinking about it, but it's not as well.
I see where you're coming from. So if I understood you correctly, what you're saying is that it's kind of useful to view yourself as the problem because it means that you'll feel as though you have more influence over the state of the game.
Exactly right.
Because theoretically, you're right, that's true. Right, you can indirectly influence your team in positive ways by just performing better. And that is typically one of my number one pieces of advice about how do you influence teammates. Just make better quality decisions. The amount of games where I've turned around people being angry just by saying, give that dragon, go top side, just make good decision after good decision after good decision, people all of a sudden shut up and start playing well, right? I've had that many a times in my league journey. So yes, you can influence and you are part of the problem. But also you're not part of the problem at the same time because you can't really, you're not controlling, you don't directly control how people respond.
Directly, yeah.
In a game, right? You're only kind of one part of the puzzle. And I don't really, I'll be honest, for me personally, I never really view that as, I don't like viewing it as a problem. I kind of view it as part of the game. So okay. When you label something as a problem, it makes you feel as though that it's something worth addressing almost, right? In my mind, it's way better to mentally kind of view it as that's just part of the League of Legends experience. People are confused. They're lost. They don't know what's happening in games. It's a
highly competitive environment.
It's a highly competitive environment. Everyone wants to win. Everyone hates to lose. People are struggling to understand how they are contributing to a game state. And I view that, if anything, I view it as an opportunity. It's like, this is the opportunity to set me apart from all these people. Because what you have to remember is that the exact same thing is happening with the other team in other games. And this is the thing that it's so hard to remind yourself of. It's so easy to think that this is happening only to me, only in my games. I'm the victim. It's only happening in the games where my team does bad. And because you just don't see what goes on in the other chat. You don't see what goes on in the other lobby. You have no clue. But it's the exact same, if not even worse, because you're not contributing to the problem, right? So ultimately, I view it as an opportunity because it's, if I'm not losing my mind and everyone else is losing their mind, that means I'm going to perform better than these players over the long run. And that means the likelihood of the enemy team going to be performing worse over the long run is higher as well if I'm mentally, stable. And also in general, just like... yeah, and I just in general, it's just not really a problem. It's just part of the League of Legends experience.
It is, yeah, and that's a pretty wild statement. People could clip that out of context and saying Nathan and Curtis thinks that
we're condoning,
or toxicity in League is not a problem. Again, I understand it makes sense. Like again, I'm not going to view it as a problem. I mean, I guess problems can still make sense, but you know, it's just always going to be there. It has to be there. It's part of the game. I mean,
Look, Nathan, this is where I feel like we're running into a lot of roadblocks in this podcast, right? And the roadblock, look, let's just be fair. I'm just going to air it out, right? We don't believe in utopias. Okay, there is no such thing as the perfect game, the perfect in whatever context we're talking about, right? Whether it's a utopia in terms of like some political landscape, or whether it's a relationship, whether it's anything. There is no such thing as a utopia. Everything is deeply flawed because we're humans after all, okay? And we're all flawed, right? We all have our own flaws. And humans are very complicated.
And so the systems that we live in are complicated
Incredibly
as well.
complicated. No matter if you might think they're working well, but there's probably a lot of problems. You just don't know what the problems are. Or maybe you're not experiencing those problems right now. Okay? So that's the first thing. You realize, especially as you start to, get more perspective in your life, right? But I would say, secondly, when it comes to competition and toxicity or negative, or let's say competition and I guess ego is a better way to frame it. Competition, ego, and toxicity all are in bed with each other, right? They're all part of the same underlying family of just like it's emotional. It's ego, pride involved. There is us versus them mentality involved. There is just competition is just very messy, very human aspects, and you need to understand that it's hard to take the good parts of competition and separate it from the bad parts of competition. And rather than viewing it as good and bad, you just view it is what it is. Now, obviously, Riot can do things to mitigate certain aspects of the negative parts of the competitive nature of the competition. And I'm sure, and they actively are wanting to do that, and they are actively doing things about that. But you can't take away the negative. You can't take away the negatives without taking away some of the positives. And if those positives can actually be maybe more important or outweigh the negatives, for example, let's take one of the things that concerned me recently is this whole discussion of banning people for soft inting. Well, in my eyes, that's a very slippery slope to go down. If someone goes 1-10 because they have a rough early game and they don't know how to come back in the game, it looks like they're soft inting. How can you distinguish between having a rough game, shit's not going your way, you're pissed off, and you just have a bad game, and banning that person?
And also as well, that means the entire community can have to say that I have never given up in a game. That's part of the learning experience.
Yes.
Like, you give up and you lose the game.
That's
it. That's that. I've done that so many times. I've mentally checked out of games, and that's part
normal.
of the experience.
It's part of the experience. And so
that should not be. That shouldn't be. I mean, again.
But imagine that. Imagine if they start banning people.
Yeah.
For like just going having a really bad game.
Well, then everyone would be hypocrites, and that's not. It just wouldn't work.
And this is what that's one of my points here is that everyone is most people are unaware of A, how they are contributing to a game. B, how emotionally stable they think they are.
And how much they've forgotten all the times. Just in this one instance, It's convenient to say, I'm the angel, I'm the best player in this game, but you've ruined so many games of football. That's why I say I have no right to be flaming my teammates or anything, because I've been that teammate. I've ruined so many games.
Yes.
Thousands of games.
And so, I guess tying it all back to the initial problem and the initial question, right? I mean, look, ultimately, people are going to be angry at each other. People are going to flame. Does that change? Should that change the quality of your decision making? Kind of. If you know there is a mentally compromised individual on your team, then you may not want to play towards them. Maybe they're out of the game. They're 0-3. They're not coming back anytime soon. Maybe you can. Maybe you can use that as information. You don't need chat on to make that decision, though. I'm telling you that. So the best way to tackle this whole thing again and again and again is you shouldn't have chat. You shouldn't even have chat enabled. And if you had a hunch that they were arguing from Champ Select, then it is what it is. You play that game, you do what you can, and you move on. Because it's happening on the other team as well. And that's it. That is the only solution to the thing. And I would rather live in a universe where these quote-unquote problems exist, but we have all the upside of this highly competitive, brutal environment, rather than the other way around. Let's dim down the competitive environment. Let's make it
the big ones like everyone gains LP, no one loses LP, or then that matchmaking system's ruined. It's compromised.
Exactly right. We need to be very delicate and surgical when it comes to making adjustments when it comes to this sort of thing.
All right, so let's read some of what our community has to say. Magnus here says, you might not be the problem, but you are the solution. Peter says, if you're doing your best, win or loss, you should be proud of the game you played. Yeah, putting out max effort. Obviously, it's very difficult to put out max effort all the time. And I definitely think that there's games where, I'm definitely not proud of a lot of games that I play, having high standards and stuff. But yeah, I mean, just have a crack, right? As long as you're having a crack, the game's much more enjoyable. Elena here says, the best thing you can do is ignore all of this, mute the chat and mute people's pings the moment they start pinging toxic. Don't try to argue with them. Don't try to convince them. Only focus on yourself and your gameplay. Make shot calls, ping objectives, but always apply the ace mentality. That's from Coach Cupcake. Acknowledge the best play, communicate it, embrace reality, meaning that you have to adapt should your team not follow your call and try to make the best out of it. Nathan here says, I don't know if I'd say you personally are the problem, but it's not unlikely that you're making it harder than usual. It's worth looking at for sure. Jesus here says, I was very toxic back in the day, and I've gotten a lot of toxic people in my games because of it. Nowadays, I hardly get toxic people anymore. Only people with a bad mentality. But I always put an effort into it to actually be positive because I actually want to win and, I'm more likely to get honored. You get mostly positives from being positive and only negatives from being negative. I've had a lot of games in which I could have been easily negative and we would have lost them, but instead I chose to be positive and won extremely hard games that looked unwinnable. From my experience, you can technically win every game if you try hard enough. Once I had a teammate who wrote in Champ Select FF15, I've got trolled in my last 2 games, so I answered, I got trolled in my last 3, let's win this one, and he got motivated and he won the game. Positivity is the counter to negativity in my experience, even if you don't think people deserve it in the end and you want to win. Use your teammates as tools to win for you to win the game. That's how I see it, at least. That's actually a good point that people don't think about. People love to label the game as toxic, but they're the ones actually encouraging the toxicity in a way. That's what Jesus here was saying. He found that there's actually way less toxicity in his games when he stopped typing and being less toxic. People don't think of it that way either.
Interesting. But yeah, because it's easy to kind of then piggyback on that toxicity, right? It's like that person's toxic, and then you're like, oh, well, you're going to be toxic to that guy. Yeah. And then it's like a, never-ending cycle.
You're adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, adding fuel to the fire. He's only going to get worse. He's not going to get happier. That's for sure.
All right. Mailbag time, Curtis?
Yep.
Away we go. Welcome back for Nathan's Mailbag. Jingle, jingle, jingle song. Alrighty then. Our first question here comes from Unhai. The title of this email is Capped Out. Hello, Curtis and Nathan. I've been a long-time listener and really enjoyed the podcast. I spent time in Curtis's below Emerald program when I was mid-silver. All the things I've learned have leveled up my game to Emerald as of last split, and it took some effort, but I managed to get to Emerald again this split as well. It's been incredibly fun, and I cannot thank the both of you enough for everything you have taught me. The reason I am writing in is because I believe I'm capped out. I generally play a 2 to 3 block per day, usually 5 to 6 days per week. I definitely feel the players in this ELO are very dedicated, and competing with them is at the edge of my ability. I do not think I can get much beyond where I am without playing significantly more. However, I'm 33. My reaction time will get worse every year, and it's likely I will need to improve in other ways to make up the difference. Additionally, my wife and I are trying for our first kid right now, so it's unlikely I will be able to play this much when that time comes. I always wanted to get to Diamond, but with maybe only a year to play League daily, is this realistically possible? Without more time dedicated and the inevitable march of Father Time, is improvement past low Emerald really feasible? Are there any strategies I could employ to be more efficient? How long does it normally take your clients to improve past Emerald these days? I also use a secondary account to make sure I get my games in on days where I'm not feeling 100% or I'm not playing well. I have about 225 games to split as the time of writing. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I hope you guys keep growing in and keep sharing your message to the League community.
Okay. Great questions. I want to tackle the first. There's one thing that I really want to start with, Nathan, is the age thing. I think this is bullshit. It's straight up not. It just is a non-factor. Whether you're 33, whether you're 37, I don't think it actually matters at all.
I can't wait, Curtis, till we're like 42 playing League and we're like still like pushing Challenger.
Yep.
I can't wait for 100%.
100%.
That. It's going to be so exciting.
And again, the reason is because League of Legends, I don't believe, is a game of reactions. It's such an insignificant part of the game. Now, not to say it's not useful. I think you can use it if you had amazing reaction time, to get yourself out of particular scenarios, but you should never be relying on it anyway. And the people that do, I mean, you're going to have an edge over them regardless, right? So League is a game of anticipation. It's not a game of reaction. So age, in my opinion, is a non-factor.
Because reaction time is not that much of a factor.
I mean, think about it. There are legit, how old is Tom Brady when he was like winning the Super Bowl and stuff?
He was like 42.
Yeah. So like, think about it. And you got like the top Street Fighter guy who was like winning championships, like 40 or something. I mean, you've got Counter-Strike players that are in their 40s that are amazing at the game and use way more reaction times. There are countless examples across both traditional sports and esports titles that show that age is not the problem. Okay. Or it's not even a factor.
You just see that in League, especially with pros, is because sort of just the way esports is structured and just it's hard to have a long career and people just get burnt out quickly because of sort of the ever-changing, the meta changing and stuff. It's sort of a unique sport in that sense. So there's other factors that's the reason why you're seeing players very young age. But even then, there's still plenty of older, like late 20s players. I mean, how old's Faker now? He's like 28 or whatever. I think he's
he's about our age. Yeah. So that's that. Okay, that's that out of the way. Now, one of the other questions was, typically how long does it take an average client of ours to go from Emerald 4 to Diamond 4? You can start with that one. What have you noticed?
I mean, obviously, I'll say roughly.
Okay, because obviously it's on a spectrum, right? Let's say, let's start with the best case scenario and then work your way down, I guess.
Best case scenario would be like maybe 3 months. Maybe just an average, like, okay, just consistent progress, chipping away. Maybe 2 splits, 6 to 8 months. And then someone who, a bit more so, really having a crack. Yeah, I mean, on the worst case, I'll probably say, as long as they're consistent with it, sticking to champ pool, that sort of stuff, yeah, maybe a year. I'd say probably worst case.
Yeah, I'd be identical. If people are consistent for like a whole year, right, which is, multiple splits, say 12 months of just pure good quality 3 blocks, good champ pool, limited stage 4 issues, gets it, curious. Yeah, I would say a year. That's at the high end. I think it's definitely doable to get it done in 6 months. Now, for you, I mean, look, this is another thing. I've seen players that you would think would be literally impossible to get to Diamond Plus, and they've made it. Not only to Diamond, sometimes some of them even to Master Tier.
Yeah.
I've seen players that if I were a betting man, even as a coach, I'd be like, this person is probably not going to get very far. And I get shocked. Still to this day, people that are very busy, don't even get to play a lot, but they just find their way of climbing. And those players, yes, they're not the best, most well-rounded players, but they find a way. And I'm going to shout out to Gifts. Gifts got to Diamond as he played, I think, a lot of Swain. And he's doing his PhD and stuff like that. He's so busy. When he plays pretty low intensity. And he found a way to make it work. And I think that, you may not be the most well-rounded player and you're not going to have this super sophisticated champ pool and you might not be able to champ pool cycle every 3 or 4 weeks. I get that. And you need to understand that. But it's 110% possible.
Yep. Even with quite limits. If you're playing 15 games a week consistently every week with the improvement mindset, a year, I would say a year is even pretty good and pretty reasonable.
Yep. Agreed. And then, and you could most definitely get even push higher than that. I think where, again, it's the D2 Master Plus, that's where it gets a bit questionable. That's another level. That's when you got to really, put in the time.
Pretty damn good at League.
You got to be very, very good at the game. Now, what was the other question, part of that email, Nathan?
Well, he says he's capped out right now.
Is he capped out? Oh, he might be capped out now. But I mean, I don't really like the word to use capped out. It's just you're at a plateau, right? It's not like there's an invisible line that's saying you can't ever improve past this point. It's just, this is where you're at. This is what you're going to have to work with. And we're going to have to get into the details. We're going to have to review. We're going to have to get you some learning objectives. We're going to start chipping away. That's just what it's going to have to be. As long as you are enjoying the process, as long as you are genuinely having fun and like you're feeling content, you're feeling satisfied with putting your time into the game, that's all that matters. The only people that I know that will cap out are the ones that aren't enjoying the game. And if you're not enjoying the game, then you're not going to climb. It's that simple.
Join the game, get into the details, loving the process. Good things can happen when you have a mix of all those three things. Take responsibility, full accountability for your games.
I want to do a bit of a tangent here. I've been sent a few videos recently from people in the community. There's a new league content creator. I can't remember his name. It's like Big 10 or something his name is. And someone sent me a video, and the video was something along the lines talking about the topic of low elo players not playing enough games. They should be playing more games, right? And, you know, a lot of high elo... Okay, so there's this inherent bias that I've noticed with the high elo community, right? And the high elo... This is the bias that I've noticed. People that get to high elo, we're talking Master, Grandmaster Plus, inherently have made many sacrifices and have actively pursued League of Legends very seriously and put a lot of games They've literally made choices in their life to make it such that they're putting more games in, whether that be sacrificing their social life, sacrificing maybe other sports that they wanted to play, spending less time with family, less time with studies, less career focused, whatever the hell it might be, right? Typically, a lot of Grandmaster Plus players especially, they're at the top end, right? Now, they got to that point by putting in a huge part of that, one of the contributing factors was they put in a lot of games. Now, they hear advice, these people, their advice to a lot of people is that you got to play more games. The reality is that the average person cannot play a ton of games. The average person who works a job or goes to college or whatever isn't able to get more than 3 or 4 games a night. That's the best they can do. Think about it. If you're working 9 to 5,
you only have 24 hours in a day.
You only have to, and then you got to sleep, a bunch, and then you might have a partner, you might have kids. Realistically, even the best of us are probably only going to get a 3 block, right? Maybe a 4 block. And then when I hear like high elo players say to these low elo players, you got to get more games in. Well, it's like, how? Yeah, sure, no shit. We would love to get more games in. Everyone would love to get more games in. But realistically, most people can't get more high intensity, good quality games in. And so I think that like there's inherent high elo bias that people got to remember. League isn't everyone's life. Not everyone is a full-time streamer. Not everyone even cares enough about League of Legends to actually make these other sacrifices in their life to push to Grandmaster Plus. Yeah. And so I've just noticed this, and I think it's, yes, we're all aligned, guys. I would love it if everyone would be able to play 2-3 blocks a day. 2-4 blocks a day.
Yeah. Get in the reps. It matters. We do know that.
It matters.
But also playing with intention, right? I could also argue as well that a lot of high elo players, remember the strategy, the approach of everyone all over these years has been throw enough shit at a wall, eventually it sticks. I would argue that a lot of the challenger players, if they had some form of like outside help, it could be a coach, whatever, a review buddy, whatever, playing with more with intention rather than pissing away so much time, you could cut, maybe let's play, they played 10,000 games. I would argue maybe 3,000 of those games could have been taken off and they would be the exact same level, maybe even better. Yeah. Right? We're in infancy stage of the game and improvement. And, resources like what Curtis and I, we're trying to build with We Will Teach You League. This is sort of just new. Like, we're sort of paving the path for the future of these league players. And our challenge and what we're trying to think about is how do we teach the game as effectively as possible?
It's about being efficient with your time.
Play with intention.
And it's not like they're exclusive. They both matter in intensity and time and repetitions. We want to find the balance. How do we get as many high quality games as possible? That's the problem we're trying to solve. But also, most people aren't going to be able to get more than 3 to 4 games in. So those 3 to 4 games have to be played with a lot of intention, high intensity, bang for buck games.
Yep.
Moving on.
And people aren't pushing, like they don't need to play that much if they, most of the player base is not going to get Grandmaster. Most of the player base is not going to get Master Tier. No. Like get in just your goal of even getting to Diamond, a couple of years of good consistency will get you there. They don't need to be playing 10 games a day to get there.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Curtis, we're just starting the mailbag. What are you talking about?
Yep.
Oh, from this guy? Any other questions from this guy specifically?
No, I was just saying, move on to the next question.
Move on to the next question. Okay, we're happy there with that one. All right, moving on here. This one here is from Antonio. The title of this email is Playing League Analogy. We love analogies. Let's see what Antonio's got for us today. The title of this one, playing with your League analogy, and we get another title here. Writing your League of Legends story, analogy for playing League. Hello, Curtis and Nathan. My in-game name is Meow. I really enjoy your podcast and relentless determination for learning. Continue up good work. It is not in vain. I've been watching you since season 13, and your logical and curious mindset really helped me accept the chaotic nature of League. I went from casually playing in Silver 1, Season 9, having a break, and discovering you in Season 13, when I started to play again and wanted to push myself in League. I reached Diamond that season and peaked Master 100 LP Season 14 this year. So that's coming from Silver 1, Season 9. This is just my short background, but I'm here to share my analogy for you, all you League nerds. I think you will like it, and possibly it could explain higher concepts to players who can't grasp them and hopefully make future distinctions between them. I came up with this analogy when I was listening to your episode 208, where you were once again talking about reference points. What are they even? Let's use an analogy here. Firstly, I will plot out structure and later define it in League terms. So, you are a writer, that's a player, on your League journey. You will write many books, which are games, for many different characters, which are champions. So you're the player, you're a writer, you're going to write lots of different books, which are the games, and you're going to have lots of different characters in those books that you're going to write, which are the champions. You, as the author, have a specific style, gameplay. So each game is a book, a story. Each story has acts. Let's split them in known ones. Act 1, early game. Act 2, mid game. Act 3, late game. Acts are splits into chapters. Chapters contain many paragraphs. Paragraphs are built out of sentences. Sentences have words, and words are spelled out. We're going very deep here.
Oh, deep.
So now we're going to use it in League terms now, yeah? Acts are long-term game states. Gameplay time 8 to 10 minutes long. Impacted by experience and overall gameplay knowledge. Early game, mid game, late game. They are a narrative and blurry in details, set specific general statements about a story. Chapters. Now we're moving down to the next level. Chapters. Gameplay time, 2 to 4 minute sections. Answer a question. What's my next play? What should I play for? Impacted by champion identity, matchup, knowledge, champion interaction, knowledge, power spikes. Big decisions in games such as first recall, roaming, matchup before 6, after 6, invading, teamfights, objectives, solo kill time-ins. There's few chapters. The few chapters define an act. Chapters are more specific events than an act, which is general picture of a story, closest thing to general lull states. And then now we have paragraphs. Gameplay time, now we're in the 30 to 60 second mark. Answer more specific questions of how do I set up my next play, chapter, and where should I be, impacted by gameplay, knowledge, and map awareness. If writer has chapter in mind.
So I think what we should do here for this segment as well is put this on the screen.
Put it on the screen to make more sense.
Because this is a lot of information. It sounds like this guy got high as a kite and then came like this guy went down a rabbit hole, man. I actually follow. I totally follow. Yeah. It makes sense to me. Yeah. It actually makes perfect sense. But yeah, it sounds like he got high as hell and then and then went off on this tangent. I love it. It's an interesting way of viewing it. I do like how you kind of have like a narrative though. You can see how like, as in like the story of the game. Yeah,
the biggest thing that people love, the axe part. so go into the details, like the paragraphs.
You mean the acts of the early game, mid game, late game? You mean?
Yeah, well, the acts is like the story of the entire game, right? So, so you've got game. The game is the book.
The game is the book.
So sometimes people are very good at just explaining the book, right? Which is the game, right? Not getting specific.
Not getting specific.
But the next level, I'd say a lot of people can get to the acts part. Like they can explain like maybe what happened in early game
went well, mid game went hard.
Exactly right. People are good at talking about that. People suck at talking about the chapters.
So chapters are more like
So these are like 2 to 4 minute sections of the game, right?
And paragraphs are even smaller.
And like people just are completely lost with the
paragraphs. And words are like an interaction.
Interaction mechanics. Or
and like
fight.
and a sentence is maybe like a whole sequence of trades or something. Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I like that. And so if you're only looking at it at a high level, like this book was about that,
or this
you're missing really the meat. You can get really off track really quickly because you're not actually like a book. When you to try to describe a book at a high level, it won't do it justice, will it?
No. Let's use House of Dragon for example, right? Because it's like in pop culture now, right? You could say, okay, it's a book or series about a civil war of dragons, right? And then then you go now to like the acts, it's like, okay, this is like this segment where, this king's getting overthrown here, like this, a couple of episodes, right? Like what's going on here? Like there's a big war or whatever, right? And then there's like, the chapters is like specific parts, like big key moments in that war or that section. And then you have, like the character development, what characters, why did they make certain decisions?
Like the relationships as well between the characters and go deeper and deeper and deeper.
And people love that aspect. That's the thing about people gets hooked to these
and
type of
people
things.
Enjoy the show for differing levels. They might enjoy maybe the interaction between certain characters, but they may not enjoy the overarching plot. You know what I mean? Like you can enjoy different parts of the game. Some people enjoy like the micro interactions, but they don't really like thinking about the game in terms of like the holistic like sequences or anything like that. Or maybe our brain is wired in particular ways, which is very, very interesting. Yeah.
So it's an interesting way of breaking down the thing. It makes sense. I follow it. I think
me too. I follow it as well. It is a bit convoluted when you describe it.
Yeah.
But it actually is very intuitive. It's actually a really interesting way of viewing the game of League of Legends. And helps see where people like, because then if everyone understood this metaphor, it actually made coaching very easy because you could just say, oh, I get it. You understand this game at an act level.
Yeah. But
this chapter here, you were completely off.
Yeah.
Or this, this paragraph is the chapter, you had the right idea with the chapter. Yeah, with the reference point to the chapter, but your actual paragraph here, the way you played this sequence of this wave was just wrong.
Yeah. It's like right intention, but just mixed execution.
Yeah.
I think there'll be sentences in a way because that's like really short. Paragraphs are like 30 to 60.
Yeah, well, but I'm talking paragraph in terms of wave management. You might have had the right idea.
Yeah, wave management overall.
Yeah,
the mixed execution. Yeah, I see.
Yeah, and the sentences is more the trades. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. I always say we have the smartest audience. Yeah, wow. I'm telling you,
incredible.
Thank you for sending that in. All right, next one here is quite a long one. This one's by Lara. The title of this email is "The Process Works. Don't Make It Easy." Hello, Curtis and Nathan. I want to give you background information about me. I was quite fortunate to grow up in a competitive environment. Both my parents were athletes that played for national teams. I was encouraged from a very young age to really put my heart into the sport. The thing is that I don't have any talent. If I wanted to succeed at something, I had to do it a lot. During school time, I studied a lot, so I got very good grades. I started playing League once Ash got released. Wow, that's a long time ago. Ash, was that one of the first
I thought that was like the starter jams. That's what I always thought.
I didn't even know when Ash got released. I wasn't around then. But I played casually. I think playing casually if you start League is very important. You just cannot have that high expectations. Like I was Challenger in Dota. I don't know what ranks Dota has. So after a month in Challenger and League, this is not how it works. If you start your journey, it should be fun and exciting. If you don't have fun and just want to get as good as possible, how are you supposed to learn what all the champions do? After a while, I switched to ranked because surely I want to reach the top. It cannot be this hard. It's a video game at the end of the day. I disrespected the game so hard, it could not have been more wrong. Mastering League, not to say that I have, I don't think that anyone can say that, was the hardest challenge I've ever faced in my life. Despite reaching top 1% in school grades and achieving achieving a master's title in software engineering with perfect grades, I would say getting to masters in League, I'm not talking about one LP master from 1 week, but being a true master player is harder than getting a master grade at university. This also pisses me off, the way people talk about League and its difficulty. They really think that reaching a school grade is way harder than mastering a video game like League, even players that play the game. I was playing League for over a decade, and as I said, I disrespected the game. Maybe because it was not a priority of mine, or because everything I worked on was in real life and playing on PC was just to relax and chill. I played on average 6 games a day, and I was gold the whole time. Now we reached the year 2020. I was playing for over 10 years and I've not reached platinum once. And after graduating, I found a full-time job and could play 6 games per day. Still, but what's the point? I always just spend a lot of time and effort on something and got amazing results in return, but not for League. Maybe it's not for me, even I really like it. I did find out that you were doing a podcast and I was watching episode 1, and this was a game changer for me. In October 2020, you inspired me to start a challenge. I believe it was episode 6 or 7. I'm going to play exactly 3 ranked games solo for 6 days per week every single week. After this, I do whatever I want, but 3 very high intense games. Given this game, you're all no matter what happens. I want to prove that you cannot just hold your level of play, but get slightly better by doing so. I want only to prove that the process works, but that you can improve it by trying your best even if you don't spend the whole day on it. Curtis said something that you need to play 3 games per day to hold your level of play and at least 3 more, 6 total games per day to improve. And I thought that's wrong and I want to prove it. So that was initially episode 6. We talked about, that was the first time we must have talked about the 3 block process. And you said that you maintain play at 3 games a day, but to improve it was more than 3. So that's not what we believe now.
No.
But I think maybe we were talking about more like challenger level. We thought that
I've no idea. I was thinking about that. Episode 6.
Well, that was 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Wow.
But yeah, that was interesting nonetheless, though. I know it would take a while, so I gave myself 3 years to do this challenge. This eliminates the possibility of just being lucky where the meta was really great and I would just have to get to platinum anyways. I want to prove that you can play a few and still improve, because having to play 6 intense games per day, which is even more games per day if you take a day off, 7 games per day, means playing 5 hours per day after a hard-working day. Think again, no way. After 3 years, I want to say, look at me, I got to platinum or low emerald. Everyone can do it without playing a lot. And I got Grandmaster with 1,012 LP. What happened? So, from my understanding, so this person played 3 games a day.
3 games a day. For 3 years.
For 3 years. For 5 days a week, right? So 15 games.
Yeah, 15 games. Was it 5 days a week or 6 days a week?
I've lost it.
Okay.
Something around that.
5
Anyway.
or 6.
So, we're talking about either, 15 to 21 games per week, right? So, yeah, Grandmaster, 1,000 LP. I think it's important to give context. I started as an ADC main. Now, I'm mostly playing Nami, Karma, Janna, Bard, Braum, and Leona. I raw stopped after half of a year in this journey, but I played support for 7 years from 2010 to 2017. I think this was a good decision. It took me half of a year to get back to my original level of play. If I've not played support in the past, this could have easily taken 2 years because you have to relearn the game. During this time, I created an amateur team, and even if we are not the best, this also helped me to share my experience with friends and made the journey much more better and efficient because they see my gameplay from another perspective. Now, finally, I have some findings from my journey. This is the reason why I'm writing this email. All right, so they've sent 10 findings here. The process works. We hear this over and over. It should be. The process is insane. I don't want to repeat myself, but sticking to a process really helps. It also allows you to review your games because I'm not playing as much as I did. Instead, began to review my games, and this is what the best decision was for my improvement. Number 2, you need to enjoy the game while playing. Because I love the competitive environment of solo queue, I could really identify myself with playing intense solo queue, and it also motivated me to keep going. But everyone is different. I think Wright does a very good job of rewarding casual players for playing a lot with Eternals, Mastery, custom titles and badges as well as the challenges. A casual player can show the world that he is very dedicated by having the highest mastery score in the world, and competitive players can do that with their rank. Number 3, fun is important. I hear from a lot of coaches, fun is nice, but you want to improve. That's true, but you can't have both. You need to find something that need to improve on and to make it fun, or find some motivation. Do you think I would care about this English exam? I hated English. Why should I learn vocabulary when I don't need this ever again? But you have to find motivation in doing so. Not everything is fun, but you can make it more fun. Number 4, you need to stay true to yourself. It's important to learn things and improve with the knowledge from others, but you need to think what's important and don't copy it, but make your own interpretation of it. I think just blindly following someone's advice is very lazy. The reason this is not pushed more is because it's easier for a coach if the client just agrees. And the clients are not pushed to ask those questions because they have too much respect for the coach. I'm dead serious. I've built a community, and as soon as they see my rank, everything I say is correct, and they don't even discuss obvious controversial topics. When someone wants an advice, I have to ask them question back because I don't want them to follow me blindly. Number 5, the worst thing you can do is spamming solo queue if you don't want to because you play casually, or you are dumb because you think that's the way to go. Like me, respect the game. And this sounds a bit broad or abstract as a casual player. I would not care less. But if you play the game like me and want to improve, you have to respect this insane skill. Number 6, mindset is, from my experience, the most important skill ever. I'm an outlier because I don't know what tilt really is. I never really experienced tilt because I'm very logical thinking. Number 7, with everything I do, I assume that I'm wrong. And a lot of the time this is true. Not that I'm really wrong, but I can improve my opinion to make it even better. Even the worst players can teach me a lot about the game. But I also know that despite not being always right, I'm very good. I have to apologize. I really dislike a lot of coaches and content creators that talk down on someone who has reached a pretty decent rank, like gold, just because they're not rank 1. Number 8, this game teaches you such great skills. So I'm a software engineer with a master's degree, and working as such, you really need a lot of skills like logical thinking, being calm in the face of tougher problems, very adaptable, and being able to process a lot of information. So maybe that's just for me because of my job, the job that I chose. Number 9, Curtis was wrong, where you have to play at least 6 games. And I don't want to blame him because he knows his clients, and my hunch is that they don't play with that much intensity as I do because I'm used to it. Therefore, they have to play more to reach the goal. I don't want to say too much about this because I'm not in his community and I don't know his clients, but this is what I found from my community. But I want to emphasize another thing. Taking one day off is very hard, but also very good. I really fell in love with the 3 games every day, so taking a break for one day is not easy, but I think taking a break that is not greater than 48 hours is great. Also, it allowed me to think from an outside perspective about my games. When I had 3 very hard games where I felt that could have 1 or 3, sometimes I decided to make the break one day earlier than usual to reflect. Number 10, I saved my strongest point for last. Your friends count and nobody else matters. I hate content creators. They have this negative talk. They don't know what they are doing, and the BBC had it too in the very first episodes. Below gold is bad. Just play the game after a year or 2 and you will easily be gold. I don't want to rant, but imagine a world where there is no content about League, no stat pages, no patch notes, nobody saying that that Zeri is OP and you can't win late against her. Only you and your friends that have to figure everything out. This would be beautiful. Let's go back to the Zeri example. If nobody told you about Zeri, yes, at the first you might be stomped late game because Zeri late is very strong, but then in the next game you get very strong high range comp and Zeri might kill someone, but then she just dies because she cannot dodge Karthasar. You would play at first with less fear because you don't know anything, you don't have any perceptions about the champion. But you will learn faster because you made this decision. On top of that, because you can beat Zeri late despite being one of, if not the best late game carry, you would know how to beat her instead of checking out as soon as Zeri gets 1 kill. But this is my hope for the future of coaches and the Broken by Concept podcast. We need to build strong communities that shut down those kinds of statements. We need to bring it back to the time when I started playing. Most toxic narratives are a result of this content and the inability of players to think. Everyone that calls himself a coach has a responsibility to do so. This is why coaches are not as respected compared to other sports. If you think about it, in football, for example, the coach is the leader of the team. He decides which players are allowed to play and which formation they play. In league, it's kind of the least important position, even if that's very bad. And the few teams where coaches were the most important piece of the team, they had success. We're building the future of League of Legends now. After a lot of thinking, I came to the conclusion that I got to Grandmaster not because I'm talented or I'm good. I got there because the process of other players is so poor and because they have toxic narratives because they don't listen to their friends, but to the clickbait of content creators, and they forgot to listen to themselves and stay true to themselves. I wish that I will demote at some point while still continuing the process because the community listened, because I didn't do anything special besides having an insane dedication. Thanks for listening to my story. I wish you the best in the future. Best wishes, Lara.
Wow, what a unique email.
It was a bit of like talking about what worked for them, but also like their opinion of like the state of things.
Yeah, I think there was a really interesting point, the one about if no one digested any content relating to the game, what would the league industry look? What would it look like? What would games look like?
It's a good hypothetical, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very
Because
interesting.
everyone's experiencing something for the first time themselves and not instantly going in with like a bias. Let's say like, Zeri scaling example. I think that probably, even if you were just in a small group of friends, I think you'll probably get to the same narratives anyway, in a way. Like, because League, it just does that to you.
It does that to you.
Yeah. Let's say it's just easy going back to the chapters.
But the thing with a small group of friends, you could hold each other accountable though, right? It would obviously depend on the quality.
It'd be so hard though.
It'd be very, very difficult. Though.
Again, even if you had a group of 100 people or 50 or even 15, 20, someone's going to say Zeri's the best late game champion in the game. And
all it takes is a few people to have that same experience.
Yeah.
And everyone's piggybacking on that.
That's right.
And look, realistically, not everyone is just super logical about it. Like, we have developed the I guess the heuristic to trust people that are higher rank. So if someone who is higher rank said, I had this experience versus champion, it makes sense for them to trust what you're saying, right? It's not like
you're coming from a place of authority.
Yeah, exactly right. Like that's something that I don't necessarily agree with. I think that you shouldn't take everyone's advice the same. Not everyone's advice. If someone in gold says, oh yeah, Nocturne is OP, well, obviously I'm going to weigh that opinion all the way down here because they just have no experience. So like you got to use common sense when it comes to that regard. Now, yes, that's not to say I can't learn anything from that person, but that's very different. I still weigh. That's where weighting of opinions really comes into play. Now, I can't even remember what I said in episode 6 4 years ago about the 6 games a day. That's definitely not what we have spoken about over the past 3 years, I think.
When did we change that?
I have no idea. At least it
would have been when we started getting results for our students with just 3 games.
Probably at least the last 2 years.
Ishan was probably the first major person.
I'd say at least 2 years.
Yeah,
right?
2 years ago. I mean, that was 2021, and he played 3 games a day for a year, gold to master, right?
Yeah, at least mid 2021.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's some great advice there. I mean, it looks like she was incredibly dedicated, right? And that's kind of what set her apart. But I think that is what makes her special. Right, the fact that you were able to stick to a process,
that is talent.
That is talent. Yeah, that is what talent is.
This person's talent, like dedication, and
that's what makes her. She's an incredible outlier. The dedication and her being logical and sticking to that process and owning her identity is what makes her an outlier. Hence why she's in Grandmaster. Yeah. Not to take away from her, obviously her skill, not downplaying that, but
she even said at the beginning that she grew up in a competitive environment that shapes you in a way. You have 100%. A different outlook on things like that. Again.
And growth mindset. She has a mega growth mindset. The belief that if I keep doing this, then I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow and I'm going to be this, amazing player.
I mean, who does the same process? Like 3 games a day for years?
No one.
No one.
I've literally never heard of a single person in my entire life do that in any field.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, I think it's definitely interesting. One thing I do like the whole fun thing. I think fun is incredibly important as well. And I think that is understated by a lot of content creators. Fun is what keeps the process sustainable. Without the fun element, everything crumbles and you can't be curious without fun, in my opinion, at least in the long run. I don't know where the hell that went.
Let's get it back up. Here we go.
And then just trying to look here again. Yeah, worst thing you could do is spamming solo queue. Couldn't agree more. And look, I think there's a lot of great stuff there. I don't necessarily like the ending though about how everyone else has narratives and everyone else is kind of they're self-sabotaging rather than her being good. Now, I do think, yes, there are a lot of people that have toxic narratives about the game and they don't have the best process, but I think you're downplaying how impressive it is what you're doing. What you're doing is special. Now, it's not special in the sense that, like, in isolation, one day of a block or a week of that or a month of that, doing that for 3 years is special. That is incredibly, incredibly impressive. And you should, I think, if anything, you should give yourself an incredibly large pat on the back because that's very, very impressive.
Mm. Also, as well, I will touch on played the game casually since season 1. You've been around the because of playing League for a while. You've picked up a lot of things. So sometimes it will just start clicking with certain type of people. So was it season 2020? She said she started
taking it seriously. The process.
Yeah. Right. So you can't underestimate that 9 years of experience. Even playing casually, you understand how every champ works, their abilities. Like that's a lot of time.
Exactly
even playing casually. So that also helped as well.
Yeah, but very unique view, and be interesting to see how she goes in the future.
Yep. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up our episode for today. Any final errands, Curtis, to run?
Don't forget the Skool
community.
Check out the Skool. Outside of that, Cupcake support
Academy is now live. We've got people jumping in, learning how to win games as a support, be proactive, changing the narrative of the support role in League of Legends. That's our goal with the Support Academy.
Outside of that, that's it.
See you guys next week.